I'm speaking for Paul, as you know. Let me introduce my friend, Faith Carter. We met 30 years ago at Camp Jabberwocky, located on Martha's Vineyard, a special camp for people with disabilities. We both love Camp Jabberwocky and admired its founder, Mrs. Helen Lamb. Before Faith's speech, I would like to briefly talk about Mrs. Lamb. She was an actress in England and became a speech pathologist so she could treat children with speech impairments acquired by war injuries during World War II. She immigrated to America in early 1950s with her 3 children, shortly after her husband had died from TB. Her speech pathologist background took her to a small rehabilitation clinic in Fall River, where she treated students with cerebral palsy, including myself. Mrs. Lamb realized that the students at the clinic had nothing to do during the summer except watch television. On a beautiful day in 1952, while enjoying the beach at Martha's Vineyard with her children, Mrs. Lamb, AKA Hellcat, you guys called her Hellcat, I guess, okay, envisioned establishing a summer camp for the students at the clinic. At the time, the medical community in the United States thought such a camp would be detrimental to people with disabilities. She was appalled at such thinking and brought 6 students from the clinic to Martha's Vineyard the following summer and started her camp. For the first time in their lives, they enjoyed summer activities such as swimming, boating, horseback riding. In addition, it gave well-deserved parents a respite from all that they had to do. Faith will tell you some stories about Hellcat and why Camp Jabberwocky means so much to us.
Okay. Paul would like me to tell you some stories about Hellcat and camp, and he's already touched on a lot of things that make Hellcat wonderful. How she took a bad situation after her husband died and moved to an entire new country and opened up entire new worlds to kids who wouldn't have had that otherwise. And how she started a summer camp where kids could do things that society had told them they would never do. Go horseback riding, go swimming in the ocean, paddle a canoe, draw a beautiful piece of artwork. So he's already told you most of that. And so what I'm going to do now is tell you some personal stories about Hellcat that I have experienced myself. And there are a couple of stories that I have that are Paul's favorites. So I will tell 2 of those, and if he laughs at me, that's okay. But first, I think I should tell you how Hellcat came to be a part of my life. My parents started a support group for parents of children who have disabilities when I was very young, because there wasn't a support group in the area, and my parents thought there should be. So they started one, and they needed a speaker for one of the meetings. And they found this speech language pathologist in Fall River. And the night that she came to speak, she brought along an 8mm short movie about the camp. And there were pictures of campers who were crawling over seashells so that they could get into the water at the ocean, and pictures of campers up on horseback. And my mom told me the other day that a lot of the parents weren't ready for that kind of thing, but they were very interested in how they could open up those experiences for me. And this camp particularly is an invite-only kind of camp. And when you go, or at least when you went when I started, you had to be interviewed by Hellcat herself. Did you have to be interviewed? So, when I was very young, my dad put me in the car and said, we're going to meet this lady who runs this camp. And I kept saying in the car on the way there, how long till we get there? How long till we get there? Are we almost there yet? And I was pretty much driving him crazy. So he gave me a piece of gum, and he said, by the time the flavor comes out of this gum, we will be there. So I chewed like mad. And eventually we got there. And I had brought my walker, and I had brought 3 toys. I had brought a Barbie doll, a thing of silly putty, and a slinky. And while my dad and Hellcat were talking, they had high tea, because she was very British. So they had finger sandwiches and cups of tea, and I thought that was pretty funny. And while they were doing their high tea thing, I was playing quietly. And finally, Hellcat got down on the floor with me, and she said, do you like to share your toys? And I said, sure, which one do you want? And she said, no, not with me, with people you don't know. Would you like to share your toys? I said, sure, why not? She said, do you go to school? I said, sure. She said, what's your favorite subject? I said, I like reading because I can do that all by myself. And she said, okay. And then she noticed I was chewing gum. And that did not make her happy one bit. And she said, proper young ladies do not chew gum. So I took the gum out of my mouth and I handed it to my father, whose hand was like this. And he held the gum for the rest of the afternoon while she finished talking to me. And when we left, I was so upset. I said, I'm never going to be invited to that camp with the funny name because she doesn't like it that I chew gum. But the following spring, I got a letter saying, we would like you to come. And I was very excited, but I had never been away from home before. So I went, and I taped pictures of my parents and my sister up on the wall. And I brought my teddy bear and my flashlight. And Hellcat used to do these things called cabin checks at night, where every half an hour or so, she would come around to the cabins and see if anybody needed anything. And at one point, she caught me with my head under the pillow and my flashlight on. What are you doing? So, well, I'm a little bit afraid of the dark, so I have my flashlight. Well, that wasn't gonna fly. So she turned on all the lights. I mean, we're talking all the lights. And everybody in my cabin woke up. And she started kicking my bunk bed. And she said, what is this? I said, you're kicking my bed. She said, that's right. And then she shut the bathroom door and she started pounding on the bathroom door. And she said, what's this? I said, that's the bathroom door. She said, that's right. And then she went over to the shelf where our boxes, where our clothes were kept, and she started pulling them out. What's this? What's this? What's this? And those are my boxes. She said, that's right. Then she went over and she shut off all the lights. And she started kicking my bed. And she said, what's that? And I said, you're kicking my bed. She said, that's right. Then she went over to the bathroom and she pounded on the bathroom door. She said, what's that? I said, that's the bathroom door. She said, that's right. And she walked over to the boxes where all our clothes were kept, and she started opening them. What's this? What's this? What's this? Those are the boxes where my clothes are kept. She said, that's right. She turned on all the lights again. She said, there's nothing in the darkness that isn't already there in the light. so give me that flashlight and go to sleep. And she took my flashlight. And she tried to take my teddy bear, but I wouldn't let her. And I didn't get my flashlight back till the end of camp, but that's okay. So that's my Afraid of the Dark story. That's Paul's favorite, so I had to add that in there. Do you have a question? If you do, that's okay. No? Okay, then I'll continue. We've talked a little bit about some of the classes that we take at camp. Camp is a place where we do things. It's not just a place where we sit. The only rule at camp is that you can't do nothing. You must do something. And so everybody does things they never thought they could do, and more. And there are your typical camp classes, arts and crafts, swimming, things like that. But one of the classes that we have been able to take for the last few years is a writer's workshop. And as you know, Paul is an excellent writer. So he has gone to the writer's workshop since its inception, and I have also gone with him and a small group of other campers. We're hand-selected to go because it's a long afternoon. And this woman named Nancy, she always has this ritual where we meet outside because of all the wheelchairs and such things. And she has this ritual where she always cleanses our writing space so that the words can flow to us and then through us. And she does incense and bells and all of that. And then she tells us to go forth and write. And she gives us a writing prompt. And sometimes they're, describe your disability or some such thing. But this past summer, she said, write about someone who's a positive influence in your life. So I wrote 2 things, because of course, go forth and write. We all dissipate and write. And I wrote 2 things. And the first one I wrote about was my parents. But then I decided that probably a lot of people would be writing about their parents. And we wouldn't want to listen to 15 different, my parents are great. So I wrote another one about Hellcat. And I'd like to read that for you. It says, one of the people who has made a lifelong impact on me as I continue to grow is Helen Hellcat Liam. She was a true visionary who never understood the meaning of the word no. She truly saw potential in everyone. People with twisted bodies that were most often shunned and turned away, or people who spoke with thick, wet tongues, became her most favorite vessels. Like an artist, she molded and shaped. She also knew that at some point, every canvas takes on a life of its own. Her spirit lives on in countless people whose lives have been forever changed by her. And also, if we are generous, some of that spirit is imparted to those we touch as well. Therefore, in some ways, her influence could be eternal. She taught me, both by example and by sometimes straight-out lecture, if I wasn't getting it quick enough, that fear is the thing that holds us back the most, more than our physical, mental, social, emotional limitations. And fear, the unhealthy kind, lives within each of us personally, but only as we allow it to. And thank you. And you might wonder why I go back year after year now that I'm not a kid anymore. But part of the reason is because I get to experience what a typical growing up, a typical growth experience might be. Instead of being in a minority of people, I am now in a majority of people. And we don't have to ever think about, well, if I go to the baseball game, how am I gonna get there, and who am I gonna sit with, and what if I have to go to the bathroom? Because someone's already there taking care of that. And we're gonna make it happen no matter how we do it, even if it seems kind of crazy. And that's a really freeing thing, to just be able to decide to live your life and not have to compartmentalize it all the time. And that's something, the ability to live your own life is something that doesn't stop at age 18 or 21 or 75. And that's why campers don't age out of camp. There's never a time when they say, you're too old, and send you on your merry way. We do have campers who are 6, and we do have campers who are 75. And you decide when you stop coming. And that is why there is such an incredible desire for people to experience Jabberwocky. And I'm very blessed that I'm one of the people that has been able to do that.